Trump wants to block federal funding for California over trans athlete participation. Again, we're focused on the wrong 1%, trans athletes. And let's be honest, women, trans women. Nobody cares about men. Nobody's talking about trans men. What do you mean? If you were born a woman, if you're born female, there's no way you could possibly compete in men's categories. What are you talking about? No, we're just focusing on women, obviously. And Trump wants to block funding because apparently someone in the long jump qualified for some shit. Let's read about it. Trump is pressuring California officials to prevent a transgender student from competing in the girls' state track and finals there. I love, this is like the degree of hell we live in. Hey, could you fully fund and, pay attention to women's sports and girls' sports? And could we expand Title IX and, have equal access and everything? Oh, we can, but we're going to have to attack trans people in order to do that. We're going to pay attention to girls' sports, but only insofar as it's creating some sort of genital inspection. Is that cool with you? Okay. That's what the TERFs say. Okay. Without naming the student, Trump took to Truth Social on Tuesday, advising that federal funding will be held back maybe permanently if state and local authorities don't do as he says. He signed, obviously, that EO in February banning transgender girls and women from competing on sports teams that match their gender identity. I mean, first of all, we just did a story about how the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, I believe, stood up to Trump on this very issue, on the issue of, is it legal for the federal government to withhold funding from my state over my state's policies around gender inclusivity in sports? And the government settled. That case is not going forward. There are other anti-trans pieces of legislation that Republicans in Maine are pushing. So like we talked about, wasn't a full W, but this has been done. Janet Mills stood on her word. She stood on principle and she stood up to Trump. And now in, I don't know, an ostensibly more blue state like California, which you would expect Governor Gavin Newsom might stand up for trans people. That's not exactly what he's doing. Trump said he'd be speaking. He wants to rescind funds from educational programs that deprive women of girls of fair athletic opportunities. Lol, what a threat coming from a guy who's actively defunding the Department of Ed. Okay, sure. Aren't you trying to defund all Title IX programs anyway? What is this threat? Mr. Trump said he'd be speaking with California Governor Gavin Newsom about the situation soon, although it's unclear if they have a call scheduled. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women's sports, the president wrote. This is not fair and totally demeaning to women and girls. Please be hereby advised that large-scale federal funding, hereby advised, will be held back maybe permanently if the executive order on this subject is not adhered to. On and on and on. So what did Governor Gavin Newsom do? He caved. And we got to talk about exactly how. He instituted a partial ban on trans girls in school sports. Again, this is about one girl, a girl named A.B. Hernandez, a trans student at Jurupa Valley High School, who beat a cisgender female athlete to win a place to compete in the state finals for the long jump championship. Donald Trump called Hernandez's participation not fair and totally demeaning to women and girls, blah, 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 shit that I just read. In response, the California Interscholastic Federation, the governing body overseeing the state's high school sports programs, announced a pilot program that would allow any biological female student athlete who would have qualified for finals if Hernandez hadn't beat them to compete in the 2025 CIF, California Interscholastic Federation, state track and field champion. So in other words, the one girl who was beaten. As a result, Hernandez who's the trans woman, girl, will be scored separately from cis girls and cis boys, essentially competing alone in a separate category created only for trans girls. There could now be 3 first-place winners in the state long jump championship: a cis girl, a cis boy, and a trans girl. The Outgate State Senator Scott Wiener withheld comment on the rule change, but had previously criticized the president for targeting the state and pledged to see the president in court for his threats to end state funding. Everyone's so fucking shook, man. Like, the fact that Scott Wiener's not saying anything is bad. That's bad news. Obviously, our girl, Erin Reed, over on Substack, Erin in the Morning, everyone should subscribe, did a little bit more of a deeper dive into this. Again, Moms for Liberty and Proud Boys, she writes, have spent months reportedly attacking A.B. Hernandez, who is a 16-year-old girl, a 16-year-old track and field athlete who is transgender, stalking her from meet to meet, doxing her family, hurling insults at her, and screaming about her genitals in public. Local advocates say these groups are outside agitators who largely don't have children actually competing against Hernandez, as per the Free Radical. Oh, you don't say that they don't have kids in the school district, in the school, and they're targeting trans girls anyway. This is how you launder the kind of extremism, the kind of harassment, the libs of TikTok nature of our politics that is laundered through these organizations, these hate groups. And they get laundered right up to Donald Trump. So like people like us, I don't know, I hadn't heard of A.B. Hernandez until now because Trump is straight up tweeting about her. This is about one thing. In other words, if a trans girl qualifies for the competition, then a presumed cis competitor who would not have otherwise made the cut will now be granted entry. The implications of this backwards arrangement are significant and dire. It shows officials from the largest and arguably most liberal state complying in advance with federal anti-trans attacks. It shows Newsom, a politician who was once the vanguard of the LGBTQ allyship, and he was, that's true, either capitulating to or falling for far-right extremist talking points about trans athletes, which conservatives have flaunted as a rhetorical cudgel to turn the tides of progress back against trans Americans, and I would add, and us all. And yes, she reminds us, like I'll remind everybody, that Gavin Newsom was on record talking to Charlie Kirk, of all people, which that reminds me the stories that I wanted to do about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, of all people, on the first guest on his dumbass podcast, and then said, yeah, absolutely, banning trans athletes is about fairness. And so he followed up on it. In a world where the governor of Maine has already taken the administration to task, in a world where you could team up and band together, I swear to God, guys, like why do we even have a Democratic Party? Like seriously, I mean, I'm seriously asking why we have a Democratic Party. Like, and something's got to give, because we can't spend every fucking day being so outraged with the Democratic Party. I want to, and I think we need to. And of course, part of my job is also waking liberals up and putting the smelling salts under their nose and telling them that they are not your friends. And, I do advocate for voting in defensive modes, but the best defense is a good offense. We need a fucking offense. We need a fucking plan. But look at your heroes. Look at these guys like Gavin Newsom. Look at the way they're capitulating. Look at the way they're going alpha first, as like Alyssa Slotkin and every other, pro-crypto representative senator has asked for. Like we don't win this way. Nobody wins this way. Certainly not people. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.